Hi, I'm Wyatt.
And I'm Grace.
And you're listening to our dad and your host of the Vacation Rental Revolution podcast.
What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Vacation Rental Revolution podcast. I'm your host, Sean Moore, and I am excited for this episode today. As always, you guys know we talk about all things short-term vacation rental investing, and today we get the pleasure of talking to Sean and Dee Crowley, and they are some of our members inside of our Vodacy Empire Club, and they're going to talk to us about their journey in their first property and then ultimately building that portfolio into property number 2. And so, Sean and Dee, thanks for joining us today.
Great to be here, Sean.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, absolutely. And so you guys know we like to keep these conversations very conversational and just talk about the good, the bad, the ugly. And our goal with the Vacation Rental Revolution podcast is to help people walk into the short-term rental game with their eyes wide open. I always tell people that, I love real estate. I love short-term rentals. We live it, breathe it every single day. And we have so much fun with it. But there's pros and cons to everything, right? And so I love these types of conversations where we can really talk to people that are, in the game and rolling up their sleeves and making it happen. And so what I like to do, you guys, is let's just kind of give the listeners a little bit of a background of where you're from, what you do, kind of what pays the bills, and then also what got you interested into short-term rentals originally, and when that interest started to kind of take seed and ultimately grow into what it has today.
Yeah, Sean, thanks for having us. And I'm in commercial real estate here in Dallas, Texas. I work for a local healthcare developer, and my primary role on a day-to-day basis is going after institutional investors for equity for all of our healthcare developments.
Nice. Indeed.
Yeah.
What is yours doing there in the Dallas area? Trying to stay cool right now, I'm sure.
Absolutely. Yes. I've been in the pharmaceutical industry for the past 15 years. So that's what I do. I work for a small biotech company now and work with psychiatrists and neurologists in the area. So
nice.
That's what I do every day, but it's been really fun to get into the short-term rental space.
Awesome. Love it. Yeah. So I'm definitely not the smartest person in this conversation. I usually am never the smartest person in the conversation, but now for sure today I'm not. So we'll have some fun here. And so what got you guys interested originally into the short-term rental game, and what did that look like?
Yeah, we originally had a lake house on Lake Whitney for the past, 7 years. And we had contemplated putting that up on Airbnb, and we actually sold the original lake house and rolled all of those profits into a new property that I actually share with my in-laws, funny enough. So it's been a fun journey with that. But we'd always thought, hey, let's try to figure out how to monetize this, and started listening to a lot of your podcasts before I joined the Vodacy fam, and kind of got a little clue on where I needed to go, and started with that process, chatted with Dee, with my in-laws, and we decided just to dive in head first on the second lake house on Lake Whitney in Texas.
So you stayed in the same market. You like that market, so what was the decision to sell the original one instead of turning that into a short-term rental?
Yeah, I think really primarily it's just that we came across this opportunity with this house that had lake frontage, and we just decided to sell that piece and jump into this one and really build it from the ground up, so to speak. It was a complete rehab, and I have to tip my hat to my wife for having the vision to seeing most of these things, because it was somewhat difficult to me to envision what it could be.
Yeah. Did you? Go ahead. I was just going to ask you about what that process looked like.
I was just going to say our old house kind of sat at the bottom of a hill. It was close. It was very close to the lake. It's in the same neighborhood, but it didn't have lake view. And we'd always kind of drive the golf cart in the neighborhood to look at other homes. And there was this one house on top of the hill that had the perfect view of the lake, but was this really rundown, kind of older looking home. And, we talked to a couple neighbors and asked questions about that house. And they said, oh, no, they'll never sell. That house has been in the family for years and years. Well, my dad, he'd go out there pretty frequently to our current lake house and just drive around the neighborhood. And he got word that the home was selling, that they were interested in selling. So it was a really fortunate turn of events. And we got the home, and just started brainstorming, but the view was kind of everything. That was the one thing that really drew us to that property. So
Yeah, and on those of you listening, you guys always know we put the links to these properties in the show notes. And yeah, you're exactly right. This property is right there on the water and pretty amazing views. But it was not, it wasn't exactly what you wanted when you bought it. Is what kind of Sean's alluding to, right? Dee, you had a little more vision for what it could be.
that's right. Yeah, it was pretty ugly.
Yeah.
I don't think it had been touched since, I don't know, the 70s or so. So it was a complete rehab, and we had to go through and, knock out several walls and just change the floor plan and everything, which I'm sure we'll talk about more later. But it was really fun. It was a lot of work, but it was fun.
Yeah, that's I love that you said it was fun. I've done a lot of remodels, and in the middle of them, a lot of times I'm saying I'm never doing this again, right? But at the end of the day, the transformations on the property are really, really exciting and fun to be able to see. And so take us through some of maybe the economics of that. What did the purchase price look like? What type of this was a major remodel, right? This was, you were spending more on the remodel than you did on the purchase price, if I remember right.
Yeah, that's right. Great memory, Sean. It's a 2,300 square foot ranch, built in the 50s, most likely. I think we acquired it for 115,000 and we sunk in over 200,000. And as Dee alluded to, we reconfigured the floor plan. In fact, babe, we sat there for, I think, 4 hours just shaking our heads at how are we going to reconfigure this thing? Because there was a garage that had been filled in and there was no front entryway. The main door and the only quasi door was on the side of the house. So we're trying to reconfigure how to make a front entry, rework the bathrooms, but we got through it. But I think we sat there for about 4 hours, just shaking our head as the kids were running around, trying to figure out this floor plan.
Did you guys do that, or did you have designers and contractors helping you do it, or were you guys taking the lead with everything?
You're staring at them, at them, I should say, at them. That's exactly right. Yeah,
that's awesome. I've been in those weird floor plan situations where you're just sitting there thinking, how are we going to do this, right? And the property turned out amazing, by the way, but it looks like it all came, I'm asking this because I've been in this situation. Does it feel like just the light bulb comes off at some point where you walk around and you stare at the same thing for so long and finally you're like, I've got it, right? Is that kind of how it was?
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Yeah.
We kind of had to recenter everything, but like Sean alluded to, the door was on the side of the house that had been added on. And so it was just very off-centered. And, so we really had to walk through a couple times. And finally we were like you said, it was a light bulb moment. We got it. This is how it should be laid out. So
yeah. And then once you get that, then you just start working, right? Then you get after it and you put it together.
You try to. There's always hiccups in the construction process, but thankfully my father-in-law kind of manned that process, so it works very seamlessly from that aspect.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. And so when you do a project like that, you buy a great property in a great area, especially location, right? We know how great the location itself was when you finish it up. And this is the benefit of a big value add type of a project like this, is at the end of the day, when you're done, you've got a lot of built-in equity at that stage, right? It's when you do something like that, and because everybody, I always ask them, was it worth it? Because like you said, there's always challenges in any sort of a rehab project. And when you've got a team like you guys had, and you were, somebody that's kind of taking the lead on it and making sure that you get through those challenges as seamless as possible, they're always going to be there. But if you can get through them, at the end of the day, you look back, you're like, man, that was well worth it, because we just added so much value to that property, right?
100%.
Yes.
100%. And it's fun to see that process come to light too, right? Because of, what Dee had mentioned earlier was a very interesting layout, interesting looking home, and to see where it all came together. And a year after being on Airbnb with all the reviews, it's just been a lot of fun. And there's a sense of pride for sure behind that, because You know how it is. The construction process is hard, and we always joke that we'll never do this again. And somehow we end up right back in the middle of it.
Yeah. Always. We always do because of the end result. Right. And then,
Yep.
and the end result is not always just, the transformation of the property. It's also the value add that happens, right? There's significant equity there that you can't ignore when you do a big value add project like that.
That's right. And I think, I haven't had it appraised, but just judging with the market down in Texas, specifically in the Dallas Fort Worth market, I would think it's doubled. And
Yeah.
at some point we'll do a cash out refi, but we're in it for all cash right now.
Yeah.
That's kind of the thought that we did with this first one. So
That's
we're waiting.
awesome.
We're waiting until the interest rates kind of settle, but yeah.
Yeah. Let them settle down a little bit. Yeah. It's, they're not, I don't think they're settling back to where they were ever, but let them settle a little bit. Right.
That's right. Exactly. Completely agree.
So you mentioned this was kind of a partnership with Dee's family and you guys or parents, I'm guessing, and then you guys. And ultimately, is this more of was this straight an investment? Like you guys love the Lake Whitney area. You love the property. Is it a true lifestyle asset as well? Do you guys get to enjoy it together, or are you pretty much just saying, hey, we're using this straight as an investment?
Go ahead, man.
We do. Yeah. We go down there when we can. Our oldest daughter she's starting to get busy with sports and things, but we try to get down there when we can. And we love this property. The way that I kind of imagined and, when I was designing the home, I just kept thinking, okay, where is a place that I would want to go to and I would want to stay at, for a weekend or a week or however long. And that's what I kept the top of my mind when I was designing and picking things out and the finish outs and the furnishings. So yeah, the lake is very special to my family. It's the lake that I grew up going to. My grandparents had a home on the lake, growing up. It was where they had retired, and my grandfather developed the whole development there on the lake. So the development is still named Glen Shores after him. So it's pretty cool. And it's really fun to see my dad and, the pride that he has that now we have this home together on the lake that he actually also grew up on. His parents moved into that home when he was in high school. So it's just a really special place. It's a beautiful lake. It's rock bottom with high cliffs, and most of the homes are on cliffs, and it's beautiful. So yeah, we enjoy it as much as we can.
I love that. And that's why I love this asset class. A lot of times we get so dialed into the numbers, the dollars and cents, and just the returns and everything else. But, we talk about that. But when I really ever talk to people that start really investing in this game, and it's one of the things when everybody always asks me, where should I invest? I say, where do you want to own? Like, where do you want to have that home? Because when we have the conversation with people, just like we're talking right there, Dee, you light up and we talk about, it brings you back the memories that you had growing up and the family, those family ties to the area and all that stuff, because we all have that somewhere. And this allows us to invest in those types of areas and kind of continue that tradition and continue that legacy. And it's a lot of fun, and it can be really financially profitable as well. And so it's really fun. And that's why I love the short-term rental game. So I love that we went there in that conversation, because that's what makes, why I call them lifestyle assets, but it's what makes the game to me so much different than any other real estate investment asset class.
I completely agree. And, Dee and I always talk, a light bulb kind of went off in me once we got on Airbnb and VRBO, and you start seeing these reviews coming and these messages saying, hey, this has been a great weekend with my family. The kids didn't, hop on the computer screens. They were outside fishing, whatever it is, enjoying the lake, seeing the deer in the front yard. I mean, it's really cool when you take a step back away from the numbers and you see how all these other folks experience what we built, and that's pretty cool to have that. So
It's so fun. And frankly, they go hand in hand, right? When we can create that experience, we make a lot more money too, right? And so it's like the better that experience is, the more memories we help people create. And we design it just like what you were talking about, Dee. We design it for what we want. I always tell people, you should be part of your target audience. You should be wanting to go stay in this property just like anybody else would. Design it that way. Somebody else is going to have a great experience. When that happens, all of a sudden, well, guess what happens? The numbers and cents start to take care of themselves as well. And so it's really fun when it comes down to it, because we have a lot of fun doing it. And I always tell people too, and I mean, you guys are a living, breathing example of this. You're doing with your parents, Dee, and you guys you're running down this road together. But I've always said I've been investing in real estate for now over 23 years, right? It's a long dang time. And I've been involved in a lot of different asset classes. I've developed a lot of different ground. I've done fix and flips over the years. I've done all different long-term rentals, commercial stuff, all kinds of things. And I've never been involved in an asset class where it was a family affair. And, this is an asset that really is a family affair. You almost can't help it but be a family affair, right? Your kids start to get involved in it, and your kids start to be, interested in it. They learn new things that maybe they've never been exposed to in school on the investing side and things like that. And so they start to learn and pick up new skill sets and interest. And so I love that we talk about this. And we talk about it on a regular basis inside of our group, but I'm loving that we're having this conversation right now where other people can hear it and understand why we like this asset so much more than, some other assets. Not that they're bad assets as far as financial investments, but this lifestyle assets can do, and fill both sides of that bucket for us. So
that's right.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Dee.
I was just going to say our girls love going to the lake, and I think it's a place that we will love to make memories, for the years to come, and then pass it down to them.
Yeah.
So it's like Sean said, it's so rewarding to get to read the reviews when we're able to share this little, our little slice of heaven with other families and see them enjoy it with their families as well. So
that's awesome. So talk to us about the launch, right? When did that happen? Timelines? How has it been as far as bookings and going as far as, actually performing as an asset for you on the short-term rental side?
Yeah, we launched June of last year, and that was before I joined the Odyssey group. And again, just kind of listen to podcasts to try to get some tidbits. And, it was a slow pickup, to be honest with you. I think that the pictures were great. I didn't have them positioned appropriately. And the layout, I think, of the description within Airbnb and VRBO was a little jumbled at first. So I would say the pickup was a little slow, but then we kind of hit our stride in July. And, we definitely saw how we were booked pretty consistently throughout the weekends. But, Dee and I kept talking like, I keep hearing about Odyssey, and we found you through Pine & Co., through Kevin Snyder. And we kept batting around, hey, should we do this? Should we not do this? And man, we jumped in, full bore. And the community has just been incredible. And specifically just reaching out to folks saying, hey, can I pick your brain about this market? Or how are you doing the listings with this? Or I got to give a tip of the hat to Jacob Payne with helping me underwrite, and to you too, Sean, with the weekly AMA calls. Just made some minor tweaks to the listings, included quotes. And I mean, it's been a rocket ship for us. And we're about to, start the Facebook ads as well too for our second property. But the first one has been phenomenal so far.
Yeah, it looks, I mean, and the reviews are awesome. You got, all 5-star reviews from what I saw, and over almost 30 of them, 35-star reviews on that first property. And then you alluded to the second property. Take us into what that looks like. Cause I remember, some of the details of that was another big chunk to bite off, right? That we were a little nervous about, but kind of familiar with the market and the area.
Yeah. You definitely undershoot the nervous part. I think I underwrote. I mean, Dee, how many markets did I underwrite? I looked at beach communities, Broken Bow, Oklahoma, which is like a 3-hour retreat from Dallas. A lot of folks go to. We looked in the mountains. I mean, I think I was beating my head against the wall. And my father-in-law, her father just kept saying, "Hey, we really need to look at this property that's like 5 houses down." We used to know the previous owners, and unfortunately passed away, and the kids got control of the property, and they just didn't have a use for it anymore. And we kept going back to this property, and I mean, Dee, feel free to hop in, but I think I underwrote this property 3 or 4 times, hopped on with Jacob, hopped on with you, and I just couldn't wrap my head around how big this property was. I mean, the numbers made sense, but the sheer size of this thing just scared the heck out of me, quite frankly. So it was a time-consuming task, but we finally said, all right, I'm making an offer. I just called up Dee, called up my father-in-law and my mother-in-law, said, let's just do it, throw in an offer. And then we started that process, Sean, and that was wild.
Yeah.
It was the longest close I've had in a residential or on a residential contract in my career. I think it took like 60 days, and we had trust issues, not relationship trust issues, but legal trust issues that we had to work through. We finally got there. But it's gone gangbusters. I made some small tweaks, and we painted the inside of the house. I think we spent, babe, how long that weekend did we spend just kind of refurbishing the house after we painted the inside? I can't even remember.
I mean, we were there for 3 days and we worked the whole time from sun up to sundown. So it's a big property. So it took a lot of work, but I would just like to back up and say, Sean did do his due diligence 10 times over with, figuring out if this was the right property for us. And I'd like to give credit to you, Sean Moore, and Vodacy. You guys helped us a ton figure out which one, was the best investment for us, and everything. And also with Lago, how to do the pictures correctly, how to, do the description on the Airbnb site. I mean, Vodacy has been so incredibly helpful for us. So yes, but buying, realizing that we were ready to make an offer and to buy that second property, it was quite the process. So
was everybody as nervous? I mean, it's always a big decision, right? And it was one that you're paying cash for. This one you financed, right? Did you finance this one? And so we're having to figure out interest rates and loan payments and debt service and all those different things. And as we're going through that process and helping, even when somebody's looking over your shoulder and making sure the T's are crossed, the I's are dotted, it's still nerve wracking, right? And it's still that process. Was it, Sean said he was a little nervous. Dee, were you the same way, or was there somebody that was the gas and somebody that was the brakes?
I was definitely the brake. I'll be honest with you there.
Yeah. But that's pretty typical of our relationship.
Yeah.
But I would say I'm so grateful for Sean. Sean carried the load for sure. He does with both properties. So I'm so grateful that he, like you said, dotted all the I's and crossed all the T's and made sure it was the right one for us. So, but I was ready to do it. You're
ready to go. Yeah. And so this one wasn't nearly as big of a project, but you did, like you said, you spent 3 days there nonstop, really getting it painted, getting it, was it already furnished, or did you have to furnish it from scratch, or what did that look like as far as the setup?
Furnished was an understatement. Yeah. Cluttered might be the best way to put that.
Cluttered. There was more than you wanted, right?
100%. 100%. Yeah.
So that was in April that you actually closed, right? That was the actual close date. Like you were under contract for a little while, but that was the close time frame.
Yeah, that's right. And they still had existing bookings. In fact, I mean, we have bookings all the way into, I think we have 3 or 4 bookings in 2024, and we're fully committed through the end of the summer and still picking up bookings as well, which has been interesting because we haven't really done anything with the listing outside of a few minor tweaks. I'm kind of waiting until we get the outside painted and a few other additions from an amenity standpoint before we redo the pictures and just do a full rebrand. But it's been just a wild ride with how it's taken off with just the minor tweaks we've done thus far. And it's been a lot of fun, quite frankly. It really has been a lot of fun, a lot of work, but a lot of fun.
Yeah. How are they? Have your nerves kind of alleviated based on its performance a little bit this first summer?
For now, yeah, absolutely. I think the problem is you just know too much. You get inside your own head, and thankfully, I've got my wife and my in-laws that just kind of calm me down, and my father-in-law might be the most laid-back human on earth, and it really helps because he's like, we're doing fine, everything's good.
Yeah.
I'd say we're close to cash flowing right now after a couple of months, and it's gone well. And I'll knock on wood as I say that, but it's gone exceptionally well. And it's been cool to see those reviews and how folks have communicated with us saying, hey, we're definitely going to be back, and we're already getting repeat visitors. So it's been fortunate. We've been very fortunate there for sure.
That's awesome. And you'll, like you said, you know enough. What happens is when you start to learn the game and you know a lot, you start to realize, okay, I could do this better, and I need to do this, and we still need to do this, right? And so there's always going to be things you can do to improve, right? And that's what we're our worst critics always, and so we look at it and say, okay, what can we do to improve? But you're in a great area, you found another great house, and it's performing. And then when the time is right for the rebrand and, optimizing the listing and different things like that, you know what to do now, right? You know the things you can do. Instead of, the worst is not knowing so much and not performing and not having any clue of where to go, right? And that's where a lot of people struggle with right now, is they've just been relying on that market, and markets have gotten saturated, and they're sitting there wondering, what do I do different now? And because all I did is rode the wave. You guys aren't in that position, but sometimes it still can be a nerve-wracking position, because you're like, okay, I need to do this, I need to do this, I need to do this, and sometimes you do just have to take a step back, do what Dee's dad says, and just say, hey, listen, we'll crack open a beer and we're going to be fine. Let's just we'll figure it out. Right.
That's exactly right. And, thankfully I've got my wife to echo that sentiment in my ear. She's like, we'll get there. Look, it's booked out. Just sit back and relax, and let's just kind of watch it grow.
That's awesome. Awesome. Well, that's, and it's a fun process. What are the plans for the future? Optimize these two? Or is Dee saying, hey, we need to buy number 3, and Sean's sitting there saying, oh, hold on a second? Or is it, what do the plans look like for growth?
I'm going to let her go first. I'm curious to see what she says. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, we're kind of, we for sure want to grow the portfolio. I'd love to buy a mountain or a beach home next. Probably leaning more towards the mountains, but yes, that's the goal.
Yeah.
I don't know when just yet, but that's kind of what I'm pushing for.
Awesome. Are you feeling the same, Sean?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it probably is a mountain community next. I mean, I've got a lot of family, a lot of memories in the Destin, Fort Walton Beach area. That's where I was born. That's where we got married. My grandparents, my parents grew up there. My mom, grew up there. So a lot of memories there, and would love to own a place on 30A. But I'm waiting for those values to drop. It's definitely shot up during COVID. But yes, I think that the plan is to grow the portfolio within this asset class and a few others as well too.
Nice. Yeah. And it's that, that 1 to 2 a year pace is like, that feels like a fairly aggressive pace when you're in the middle of it, right? You're like, okay, we just launched, we need to get this established, gain that momentum before we bite off on another one, right? I always tell people, this is not one of those assets that you're going to go load on 20 or 30 properties a year, right? It's just that's not the way that this works. And so if you can say, okay, my pace is going to be 1 a year, or, maybe 2 a year based on finances and everything available, that's a pretty good pace, because a lot can happen in a 4 or 5 year period with that, when you're on that type of a pace. And it's always fun to just say, okay, yeah, like you said, the mountain house and then the beach house, and having those different assets in different types of markets that you can go and enjoy and have those different experiences is really fun. And it's just fun to look forward to and talk about, okay, this is going to be the next step. And I don't know about you guys, but we never stop looking on Zillow, right? For those next ones. Like, we're always looking in those mountain and beach areas, right? We're still always looking, even though we might not be buying tomorrow, it's always right there.
100%. I kind of laugh at that, because I think I sit there on Redfin at night right before we go to bed, and she'll just yell from the bathroom, just stop doing that right now. And I can't. Like, it's just an addiction. It really is. And it's fun. And you allude to how beneficial it is to create those memories and to build equity. But I'll be honest, we just got through our taxes, and the tax benefits are just very significant for 2 W-2 employees sitting over here. So it's very helpful. And shout out to Kevin Snyder and Pine & Co. for that, because they've been phenomenal.
And I've had, you guys know, we met through Kevin, and Mike and Kevin are part of our expert advisors. They are the best in the business, and something that is a huge advantage to short-term rentals, especially when you're paying big tax bills, and for W-2 employees like you guys. If you're a high income earner, and there's not a lot of options to be able to do out there that even exist, what exists in the options of owning and materially participating in these short-term rentals. And it's a big deal. And those guys are the best in the business. And yeah, we should give a loud shout out to those guys at Pineco and what they do over there to help a lot of our Vodacy family. They do all of my stuff as well. And it's a huge advantage, right? And when you that we truly, like the title of that podcast I did with Mike is how to get Uncle Sam to pay for your next down payment. Right. And it's not, that's truly what can really happen. You can continue to parlay, the money you're saving in taxes into additional properties. And it's a big, big deal. And so, yeah, I appreciate you bringing that up, because those guys absolutely deserve a shout out.
Yeah. That podcast was great. I actually listened to it, I guess last week. So I still pick up tidbits. I still listen to these podcasts, I still hop on these AMA calls. And again, the community cannot be overstated how extremely open they are, and knowledgeable, and willing to just to jump in and give advice. So yeah, hopefully we can pay that back.
I was just saying, you're right in that. I mean, you're in that community doing the exact same thing. And that's why I always so much appreciate when we have these conversations on the podcast, because more than just our internal Vodacy family and the Empire Club gets to hear these conversations. And every single time I start these episodes, I ask if there's anything that we want to cover, or more importantly, is there anything we don't want to cover? And every single time, and you guys did the same thing. You said, no, we're an open book. We want people to hear about the story, understand the good, the bad, the ugly. And that's what it's always, I always appreciate that when other people are willing to share that story, because so many of us, that's what inspires us to take those steps forward. Right. I mean, we don't usually get inspired when I'm sitting here on a solo episode telling you all these different things, but when you hear somebody that you're like, hey, I relate to that. And that's why I appreciate it more than anything, is you don't know who's listening and who you're inspiring to take that next step forward. So I very, very much appreciate you guys doing that. These are always my funnest conversations by far.
Great. Yeah.
So on that note, yeah, you guys know kind of how as we start to roll into the later part of the episode and wrapping it up, I always like to know, and I want like both of you to answer it if you don't mind, is if you had to go back and, give yourself some advice and say, okay, this is what I would do a little different, and here's what I pay attention to maybe a little bit different. If you could go back into the beginning, knowing what you know now, what advice would that be? And, what you tell your younger self before you got into this game?
Go first.
Dee's on the spot first. Okay.
Yeah, Dee's on the spot first.
You go first. Oh,
yeah. I think for me, it's just kind of staying out of my own head, and I'll kind of make fun of myself here to some degree. It's don't be afraid to jump off the cliff. Just be mindful of how high the cliff is and where you're jumping, because you can sit back, and I think you say this as well too. It's great, you can underwrite these things and point out why you can't do a deal, but I think it's more imperative to try to find the reasons to do a deal.
Yeah.
And if I can stay out of my own head, I think that would be the best advice for me. But just don't be afraid to jump off the cliff. Just be mindful of where you're landing. That's all.
Yeah. Nice. Dee?
Yeah, I agree. Like follow your intuition, and don't overanalyze and overthink it. I think you have all the great tools that are so helpful in making those decisions. And then part of it is kind of your intuition and, your love for the area, or, your desire to rebuild and have a place for other people to enjoy that's, a place that you love. So don't overthink it. Don't overanalyze. Like Sean said, you can really get in your own head about it. So, and follow your intuition.
Love it. And that's what helps us take action, right? Yeah. And I love that advice too, is listen, hey, you've got to take steps forward. You got to trust your gut and say, hey, listen, at some point I'm going to have to move forward. I can't be afraid to jump, but also I just don't want to jump blindly, right? We need to be able to do a certain amount of due diligence and understanding of the game we're going to play and all those different things. So we never want to just say, okay, I want to just be a maverick and run toward, I'm not, if I'm running towards something, I want to know semi what the road I'm running down is going to look like. Underwriting, for example, you're never going to underwrite a property perfectly. There's always going to be good and bad in every single deal, right? And so, like Sean said, look for the reasons why the deal works, look for the reasons why it doesn't work, and make sure that the reasons why it works outweigh the reasons why it doesn't work, right? And then we have to say, okay, just, in spite of the reasons why it doesn't work, I've still got to go forward. I've still got to move forward, or it's never going to work, right? And that's what investing is about. And I think that's a great lesson for anything that we try new. There's going to be the ups and the downs in any journey, and there's going to be challenges along the way in any journey. And so figuring out what that game looks like, surrounding yourself with people that have done it and been a few steps ahead of you in the game is important. And that's what you can say, okay, listen, I always tell people as a coach, right? Everything we do inside of our 9-step process, all of that stuff, that's all great. We'll give that away for free. People hire us for those times when they're struggling and for the times when they hit the bumps in the road, because we've been down the road a few times. And so that's where the value comes, because you're not going to avoid the bumps. We want to get through them as quickly and as fast as possible, right? And being able to be okay with the bumps in spite of everything else going on, because at the end of the day, like you said, you get to the end of the road and we look at that back at the property that we just spent all this time and money on and rehabbing, and we look and say, was it worth it? And we're like, yeah, it was worth it. And Dee said, even it was fun at times, right? There was times where we had fun while we were rolling up our sleeves and getting dirty and sweaty and putting it all back together, right? And so a great piece of advice. And it's kind of a common theme with people there's that piece of advice in there too, that you're saying at some point you got to move forward, right? You have to take action, and we don't want to overanalyze, get in our own heads and get in, that analysis paralysis and just sit there, right? At some point you have to move forward. And so love it, you guys. And I love that you joined us on the podcast today. I love that we had this conversation. I always appreciate anybody that's willing to come and share their story. And like I said, these are my favorite episodes. Those of you that are listening, we know how valuable your time is, and we always appreciate you spending it with us as well. And so you guys know, when you're listening, I always ask you for 2 things at the end of every episode. The first, if you got any value out of this, please like us, give us a thumbs up. If you have more than 30 seconds, leave us a review and share it with somebody that you think might get value as well. And number 2, you go pick one thing that you can do today to start building that life. You don't want to take a vacation. I'm going to start that over. And number 2, go pick one thing that you can do today to start building that life you don't want to take a vacation from. Cheers, my friends.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Vacation Rental Revolution podcast. Share this with other people you think need to hear about it. And don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. Hey Grace, is there a website? Yes! For more amazing content and expert advice, visit Vodacy.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.